Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Relentless Transitions podcast, where we talk about life, we talk a little bit about business, and we talk about triumph. If you are here visiting us for the first time, listening to us today, my name is Teresa Carthren, and I have a co host who is Rosalind Keith. We are both women, but we're also women in business, and I am here in the United States, and Rosalind is in Canada. So, we bring a global perspective to all of these topics that we talk about. And it's really just fun. Now, today is really, really, really going to be quite interesting. We have a great topic. We're going to be talking about fear. And, when I say that, I'm sure you can hear the smile in my voice, and if you are watching on YouTube, you can see this big old smile on my face. But really, it's not because we don't have an experienced fear. But today, we're definitely facing a fear. You're getting us just more in the raw. We just kind of hopped on, and we came up with our topic, and we said, you know what? We're going to just record right now. We aren't going to script a thing. So this is definitely facing a fear of having to, go ahead and just do it right away. Just don't even think about it. But today, what we're going to talk about is fear as it relates to moving, relocating from one home to another home. Rosalind, you ready for this?
Sure. And you know what I love about what we're doing today is that one of the things that attracted us to the idea of doing a podcast was just to keep it real. And we have always had these amazing conversations and have thought, wow, we should be recording these. So this is one of those conversations that we started before we hit the record button. And we said, well, let's just record this because this is a good topic. This is a really interesting topic. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So we're just gonna hop in. So, Rosalind, let's out since I'm talking first. I'm going to start with you. I'll ask you a question. So, when it comes to moving, have you actually experienced fear around moving, relocating?
You know, I don't know that I have moved internationally 7 times. So across the ocean, to a different country where you need special visas and all of that. And I don't looking back, I'm sure there must have been some level of fear, but I don't remember it that way. I don't remember being fearful. It was an adventure. It was exciting. There was certainly lot of non unknown because a whole new country, but not just a whole new country, a whole new culture.
Hmm.
And in one case or a few cases, a whole new language. So it certainly had must have had some level of fear, but it didn't register. I don't think. You know, how about you?
I was just gonna laugh and say, yes, that is just too funny because I think that I'm the same way. I have not moved internationally, although I've traveled internationally. But as far as relocating homes, now I'm originally from Arkansas. When I started my college journey, I moved to Washington D.C., which was major. That was major. But I don't even think I stopped to be afraid. I think I was just so excited about the opportunity to go to college, and to go somewhere different, and quite honestly, to get away from home, like most, most young people are. You're just excited, about the whole opportunity to have more independence and all that kind of stuff, and you don't even think about those things. Now, once I arrived in Washington, D.C., which was really interesting, I had never seen a bag lady or a homeless person. Um, I don't remember ever seeing a homeless person in the small town. I came from a small town, about 50,000 people. And I don't remember ever seeing a homeless person. I honestly thought that they were characters on the television show.
Mm. Yeah.
So when I saw homeless people or prostitutes, I literally thought, so I was super naive, but I wasn't necessarily afraid. And even when I did see them, I was really more curious,
That's
you
what I
know what
was
I
gonna
mean,
say.
than I
Yeah.
was, afraid.
Yeah.
And, since that time, of course, I moved back home, and then, now I live in Georgia. Um, and even then, I just wasn't, and, I never looked at it as something to be afraid of. But like you, I think that I have such an adventurous spirit
Yeah.
that it's like, you know,
Yeah. Well, and you also touched on something that I think is really, really important for anybody considering these kind of moves where you really just uproot your whole life and move to someplace totally unfamiliar to yourself, is curiosity. Because with curiosity comes an open mind. And
mhm,
so when you see things that are out of your norm, they're out of your normal culture, what you grew up with, what your brain formulated as to be the norm, you don't automatically rush to that negative place. Oh, how stupid is that? It's more approaching it from an open-minded, curious, non-judgmental way that really helps you to adjust. I think
mhm,
in many many cases, because otherwise, if you're wandering around with that really judgmental, that's not the way it should be done. That's not the way I've done it my whole life. That's not, um you're going to be really unhappy, you know so and we talk about positivity in just about every single one of our podcasts. It's essential to starting your own business. It's essential to just getting through life every day, and having that when you're doing such a big, they do say that moving is one of the most stressful things a person can ever experience in their life. And if you approach it with that open, curious, more positive state, it's a lot easier to adjust when you land
mhm.
on wherever you're going to land. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, what I can tell you, I've had more stress moving from one home to another home in the same place than I have anything, because
Yeah.
packing is
Yeah.
frightening and scary,
Yeah. Yeah.
scaring me. But
Exactly.
let's just kind of delve into that, because I'm sure that although Rosalind and I are not expressing it as a fear, and we're naturally, we kind of have a makeup that is geared towards positivity and adventure and curiosity, but it does not mean that we don't have fears. I think
Mhm.
that just we're just speaking off the top of our heads today, and I hope that it's helpful, and you will find this podcast fun. But what just came to my mind is that, of course, we have fears, but maybe there's something about us that is, unique to us and other people like us, that helps us to just kind of forge and push through fears. So, the things that are coming to my mind right now is, of course, we just didn't just decide today and then move today, right?
Yeah.
So even though you move back and forth internationally, and I'll let you speak for yourself, but I know that there are some things though that I did, such as kind of do some research about the area,
Exactly. Yeah.
where I was going,
Yeah.
um, you know, uh, thinking about, um, things like the economy, crime. I mean, and this is like a broad overview, but
Yeah.
when you do that type of research, you kind of get like an idea. Go to this area, don't go to this area. Housing costs. The language, like you said. Like I said, I've traveled internationally, so you're thinking about the language. What is proper there, their perception of people, that
Yeah.
country,
Yeah.
their perception of who you are, as an American, as a Canadian, what is their perception? So kind of just giving you a general overview of like what you might expect. I know when I moved from like one apartment complex to my second. I've lived in two apartments. And the reason that I decided to move from the first complex because after living there for a while, just the area around the complex started to change. And so I thought, well, maybe, if this keeps going the way that it is, it might not continue to be the safest place. Then also I had graduated college, so I was in a different financial position. So when I moved to my next apartment complex, I visited during the day, I visited at night, I drove over there on the weekends, things like that. Just so I could get a real good feel of what was going on at all times. So I mean, what about you?
Oh yeah, I mean for sure. One of the things that really made our moves um uh easier to handle was the fact that we were fortunate enough to have the support of my ex-husband's employers, and so they actually hired people to help us learn more about the culture on the ground. And of course we did research into, well, I was 7 months pregnant the first time I moved internationally, and I had a 3-year-old, so
Well,
naturally I wanted to know about the medical care, right, in
hmm
this in the foreign country. And so researching and getting some answers to some of those things that might freak you out a little bit, like the crime statistics, like the location of a grocery store, that sells food you like, all of those things. If you do stuff like that ahead of time, it actually, I think it's one way to cope with some of that fear that is, even though Teresa and I say we didn't really fear it, there on some level, there was a little bit of anxiety there with every move. I'm sure you felt it too. But knowledge is power, and so educate yourself about the realities of the new neighborhood you're going to be moving into, or the new city, or the new country, or the new state or province or whatever, because there are going to be differences, and it's going to be disorienting. And the more you help yourself become aware of the differences and the similarities before you land on the ground, I think that really goes a long way to allaying some of that anxiety that you'll be feeling about the move. So yeah, exactly.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I can remember, another tip. So, just from what we've said so far, some ways to overcome the fear of making a transition, especially when it comes to relocating, like from your state, not just moving to another home, these things apply to that as well, moving to another home, um, but moving to another state or another country is really being prepared.
yeah,
That can help you with some of your fears, doing some research about things such as medical care.
yeah,
We didn't talk about money, the
yeah,
currency, the value of your dollar matched
yeah.
up to their dollar, the language, any particular customs,
That's great.
that you need to, be observant of, so that you make sure that, you don't run into any problems there. We talked about crime, so research, and that can be through if you're moving with your job, them giving you some type of support, and if they don't offer it,
Yeah, yeah,
ask for that support, and then if you're moving independently, as I was, quite honestly, you can Google anything. But
Yeah.
I'm a big I'm a big reader, and I can remember, going to the store and purchasing books, even
Sure.
about the places that I was going. Just even getting like those good visuals, and
Yeah.
having like something physical in my hand, that kind of helped me. So when I did see things, they at least, there were things that looked familiar.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Another thing that you can do, I think that if you know anyone, in
Exactly.
the
I was
area,
gonna say that.
close to the area, or who has visited the area,
Yeah.
communicating with them also, to get some insights. I
Yes.
think that
Yeah,
also is
exactly.
quite helpful.
Yeah, and you mentioned going to the bookstore and picking up some books and stuff. Even the travel guides to the city will provide you with great information. So you may not find a book about moving to Washington, but you will find travel books about Washington. Pick up one or two, familiarize yourself with the state or the city, whichever Washington you're moving to,
Right.
and just get to know a little bit about it before you land on the ground helps a lot. And I was thinking as you mentioned the fear of transition. I think that um, you know if we look at it from even we're talking about life transition here, but even if you're making a transition to starting your own business and that sort of thing, it's all the same kind of skills that you need to handle the move. So the arming yourself with knowledge, researching, and the more you spend on the background work, the better off you'll be, whether you're moving to a new country or to, a city in the same state or province. And that's the same with a business. Just arming yourself with that information before you make the move. And you will build your you'll build your confidence, and you'll feel strong enough to make that big
Yes.
step, and
Mhm.
so start with the baby steps, start with the things you can handle, like learning a little bit about the neighborhood you're moving to, learning about um, you know the things that are important to you. Find the answers before you go. It'll make you feel like you know what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Because you know what, you don't want to. You are new, but you don't often want to appear new
That's right.
when you are going to areas, because I can tell you that in the back of my mind, I guess, if you wanted to say it was a fear, I don't want to, never want it to be like a target. And, of course, if you watch the news, people who are visiting or people who are
Yes.
new to places are looking lost,
Yeah.
can kind of become more a prey to
Yeah.
people who are unsavory. And let's just face it, there's good and bad people everywhere.
That's
So
right.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to, get focused on this area is better than the other
Yeah.
area or
Yeah.
anything like that. I remember when I was in college, and one of my instructors made this comment that has stayed with me my whole life since then. And she said, um, and we had to go on site to do a clinical. If you don't know, my background is as a registered nurse, and we were going to an inner city hospital, and some of the students were, very nervous about going to this hospital. And my instructor said to us then, she said, no matter where you go, you need to be very mindful of your surroundings, because bad things can happen everywhere.
Yeah.
And that just made a lasting impression on me. And so that is true. So I'm just saying there's good and bad people absolutely everywhere. So you can do
Yeah.
all the research that you want. None of us know the intentions of other people,
That's
what's
right.
on their
Yeah.
mind. So just to make yourself less of a target, it's beneficial to be more
Yeah.
informed.
Yeah.
But there was something that you mentioned, two things actually. You talked about the travel guide. Absolutely, I am telling you, I never traveled internationally without a travel
Yeah.
guide. And what there's different ones, so I won't. I have a favorite, but I'm not going to
Yeah.
mention
Yeah.
their name. But what I will say is that what I love about travel guides is that they have the most beautiful pictures,
Yes.
and they're really pretty exact. So honestly, when you see something, you really feel like you've been there, before, or it's not like totally unexpected.
Yeah.
And so even, here in the US, and I'm sure in Canada, there are travel guides to areas in all of the 50 states as well as, all throughout Canada. So I don't think you can go wrong with the travel guide. And what
Yeah.
I especially love about travel guides is that they even tell you about, eating, food,
Yes.
restaurants,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the pricing, like whether it's something less expensive or
Yeah.
something very expensive.
Yeah.
So you really get a lot of information out of those. So that is like really good. And another thing you mentioned that you moved, and you were pregnant and you had a young child. So let's talk about that because I know that many have faced that challenge of,
Yeah.
for whatever the reason, whether it was that their partner or their mate, got a job or they got a job that was going to cause them to make that transition,
Yeah.
while they were pregnant or for the first time or, pregnant and have another child.
Yeah.
So how do you like conquer those types of fears when you may be moving away from a support system? If you're going to a support system, that might be more excitement as opposed to fear. But if you're moving away from a support system, how do you handle that?
Yeah, that is a good one. The Again, it comes down to preparation. Before ask your doctors where you are to see if they know anything about the healthcare
Absolutely.
system wherever you're going. Ask them if they know any doctors in the area where you're going. Reach out to friends. Just reach out and ask for references. But also, I don't know about in the States, but there are listings of doctors here. They all have to register with the College of Physicians and Surgeons here. So go to the website, the registering body's website, and look up doctors. And there are a lot of ways to check up on. There are review sites of doctors out there. So look for the reviews of these doctors. um Find out the names of the hospitals where you're going, and check out their websites. If you have the opportunity, tour them. A lot of them will give you tours, to familiarize yourself with their services. And so yeah, just again, it's about preparation. And as far as helping your kids to adjust, make sure that their a few of their favorite, most familiar toys are not packed in the moving van. They are in the car with you, so that when you land on the ground or in the city or in the state or wherever, um, they are there and there's something familiar for your child. But remember, the one thing that children want the most and rely on the most for strength is their parent. And they can be resilient if they know that their parent is there and not freaking out in front of them. Because if
Yes.
you're freaking out in front of them, how do you think that makes them feel? So as much as it may feel like times that you just want to cry because the unfamiliarity is overwhelming, um, you know, try not to scare your child. Now, that being said, um, don't deny that your child's feeling that fear. Talk to them, empathize with them. I even go so far as admitting to them that I'm sad about the move, or that I'm, anxious about their new school, or, so that they're aware that they're not alone in this move, and that mommy doesn't expect them to be perfect, or daddy doesn't expect them to be perfect, that it's okay to be a little bit afraid, but it's going to be okay. We'll get through this together, kind of thing. So I think that, again, it comes down to pre-work before. And you know what, I'd advise you, even if you're just getting an inkling that your partner is going to be transferred somewhere, start the researching as soon as that inkling shows up, because you can't even make an informed decision about whether you want to go to that place or not without knowing something about that place, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, we keep coming back to this idea of the preparation, the research, ahead of time. There are a number and tons of resources out there on Google where you can, one of the a great resource about a new city is the Chamber of Commerce. Go to the
Mm-hmm.
Chamber of Commerce website. They I know here, because we have a severe shortage of general practitioner doctors and specialists in our area, they actually have a service that links you up with doctors that are accepting patients and stuff. Our Chamber of Commerce does. So, there's another great resource is the Chamber of Commerce. And of course, the city websites. You can get an idea. One thing, just thinking about it, one thing, if your kids are into sports, or if they're into ballet, or if they're into, whatever they're into, go to the city website and find out what activities the city offers. Get your kids excited about that possibility. When we moved we moved um, from Canada to Singapore, and then back to Canada for 2 years, and then from Canada to Tokyo. So when we moved to Singapore, my daughter was 3, and and it was kind of curious, funny, because she went to a preschool where she had to wear a school uniform. Then she went to a Canadian international school for junior kindergarten, and she had to wear a school uniform. So then she was about 8 when we decided that we're moving to Tokyo because of my ex-husband's job, and we told her that we were moving to Tokyo, and she just flew off the deep end, and she said, and we, one of the things we talked about was Disneyland in Tokyo. Tokyo has
Uh-huh.
Disneyland, and we're going to a place where it's like we could go a couple times a year, and and she just said, "I don't want to talk about it anymore," and she stomps off to her room. And then a couple hours later, she comes downstairs and she says to us, "Okay, I have 3 conditions." This is an 8-year-old. I have 3 conditions. One, I don't want to go to school where I have to wear a uniform.
Mm.
Like, she was traumatized by wearing a uniform when she was age 3 and 4. I don't know why. I don't know what was so
Really?
traumatic about it. But anyway, I don't. We have to bring our cat with us this time because we had left our cat back in Canada when we were in Singapore,
Uh-huh.
and you have to take me to Disneyland the first month we're there.
Okay.
and and then she was not super happy about the move, but so being open to listening to them, to listening what is their biggest fear and their concern, you know that helps a lot too, when you're moving with kids. And so if you know what's available for them in the city or state that you're moving to, if you know something about the school, if you know something about the neighborhood, start showing them those things, start getting them a little bit excited about the opportunities that are going to be presented to them when they get there. So um
Awesome. So far we've talked about, well, really we could put most things into being prepared, but basically prepare yourself, do your research, ask questions, connect with others. We gave you some resources like the Chamber of Commerce. If you're moving with the job, ask them about any type of assistance. And I definitely love what you said about as soon as you even think that there might be a transfer to another area to start doing the research, because that's even going to help you when you're negotiating. Look,
Exactly.
I'm always thinking about the dollar, trying to make sure that we are compensated the absolute best. But it can help you with negotiating with your company,
Yeah,
on the terms of this transfer. If
that's right.
the more information that you have, you will be able to ask the appropriate questions.
Yeah.
One of the things that my husband and I did when we moved from Arkansas to Georgia, was actually we knew that we wanted to move, but we were considering um, three different states. So what we did was we narrowed it down to like which city in each state that we were the most interested in. And fortunately, we were in a position to actually go and visit. And it doesn't have to be anything that's like overly expensive, but we visited all three locations
Yeah.
and we stayed, at least 3 days. And today, I don't know. Some people probably think that it was like crazy, but we visited the locations. Um, we we actually approached people, and fortunately, even though we were letting them know that we didn't live there and that we were new, people were actually very friendly.
Yeah.
But we just approached people and just asked them what did they think, about living in the area,
Yeah.
and if there were any pointers or tips that they could give us. And like I said, we ate at restaurants that were close, to the area, and we walked around. We got out and walked around, and we ultimately made our decision to move to Georgia. But that was like super powerful,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
helping us to make our decision. Was
Yeah.
not only did we do like some research where we were looking at the
Yeah.
computer and looking at books, but we took some time and just went and visited the area.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, in all of this, the best laid plans don't always come out, the way that you want them to. But, um, I think that these are the types of things that have helped us to move forward and not necessarily be so fearful. I don't want to say we haven't faced fear. We didn't interpret it in that way.
Yeah.
But, perhaps these were just kind of like these hidden things that, but the way that we addressed it, it helped turn it into not being something that was fearful,
That's
but
right.
actually something that was, we considered to be adventurous,
Yeah.
that it was just kind of we labeled it as curiosity,
Yeah.
and and it made it fun. Now,
Yeah.
to my friends who grew up in the same town that I grew up in, who still live there, who never even went away to college, they think that I'm a Martian or something. I'm
Same
like
here.
I'm like
Yeah. Yeah.
superhuman.
Yeah. Yeah. I have my friends all think I'm the biggest risk taker in the world,
Yes.
and I just think of it, well, really? Like, I just don't understand why they would think that. Um and then when you think about it, you say, well, yeah, I guess it was, but I never thought of it that way. I never
Right.
thought of it that way. One of the things that you mentioned was, when you're being transferred, it reminded me that one other great source is to reach out to somebody in the office where you're moving to. Connect with them,
Ooh.
get information from them, and what you described as going to visit in the business, in the relocation industry, that's called a look see trip. And part of that, especially if you're transferred, is meeting with other people that you will be working with. And so if you're coming with a spouse or significant other or children, meeting the equivalent there at the office is always the first place to start. for building a support network. Because that was one thing that I forgot to mention when we were talking about moving with kids, the fact that you potentially are leaving your support network behind. So again, find out about mom and kid groups, or dad and kid groups, or yeah, kinder music or play groups or something. Find out about those ahead of time. And you know, i think I think the hardest part for some people is to reach out to a perfect stranger and ask for an invite, or it really pushes some people beyond their comfort zone. But
Mhm.
that's one thing, because if you're an introvert, going up to somebody and saying,
Hey.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, because I've always, well, on the Myers-Briggs scale, I'm borderline introvert extrovert, and so I've never really thought of myself as this really, you know, gregarious person who can just go out and meet the world. Um, but I think I've developed those skills quite strongly through all my moves,
Mhm.
because if you don't reach out to people around you when you get there, you're doing yourself a disservice. You need that connection with people that are, if you're a mother with kids, with people that are in a similar position. If you're a single woman, you need to reach out and find other single women. If you're a single man, you need to reach. You have to look for um, that support network, and you need to do it pretty quickly after you arrive there.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, you're going to feel lost
Mhm.
and alone. One of the things I wanted to touch on, uh, uh, I'm not sure how many people know, but I'm also an intercultural trainer. So I've studied intercultural communications, and I've studied how people move um, through these transitions. And it goes in a phase. You get to this honeymoon phase. You've done all your research, and excitement sets in, and you land on the ground wherever you're going, and you're still pretty excited because it's all new, it's fun. I mean, it's stressful, waiting for your furniture to arrive, or whatever, getting your
Mhm.
house set up. But by and large, um, your mentality is one of, yeah, this is great new start, this is, and that lasts, maybe 4 to 6 weeks. It's almost like you're on vacation, right? And you know how
Mhm.
exciting it can be to be on vacation. So that lasts about 4 to 6 weeks. And then you start sliding down, and you get into culture shock. And this will happen to you, like you said, whether you're moving from Arkansas to Washington, D.C., or whether you're moving from um, some rural town to the big city, or whether you're moving from some big city in one country to another big city, and there's going to be culture shock. It doesn't matter. It's a different, people behave differently in every part of the country, and the world. And so you're gonna that's when you start maybe slipping into a little bit of depression. And what I tell my clients is, you know what, that's okay. It's normal, and it's important to recognize that this is a normal phase. And if you need to spend the day in your pajamas eating bonbons and binging on Netflix, that's fine. Just don't make it a habit. So one day, maybe two, okay. Third day, get yourself out of that house and start exploring again. After a few weeks in this culture shock, you start to accept the differences. You start to accept the challenges that life is presenting to you in this new place, and you start going back up to integration again. And especially if you're moving to a place with a different language, as you start acquiring a little bit more of language, your integration becomes. And so it's kind of like a U curve, the progression through this transition after you've landed on the ground. And being aware of that, and understanding that what you're feeling is normal once you hit that low, is super helpful, because you could very well think that there's something seriously wrong with you, with how bad you're feeling. But recognize that there's been a ton of research on this stuff, that you do come out of it. By and large, people do come out of it. But it really helps if you've done some of that research ahead of time, if you found a support network quickly as possible. That fall isn't as hard and doesn't last as long. So, yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Awesome. Well, you know what? I hear another episode in this talking about how to, adjust.
yeah.
Once you actually make your move,
Yeah.
I hear, and I'm thinking about some things that I use that have really helped me. That I think will, when we share them with our audience, that it may help them. But guys, this is the end of another episode. We can talk all day long. I'm telling you, Rosalind and I don't know where you've been all my life, Rosalind, because I'm telling you, it's like we're we are sisters. I
Yeah.
tell her that all the time. But this has been amazing. And so as we talk about facing those fears when you are moving from one place to the next, when you are having to physically move yourself and all of your belongings from one place to the next. That's what we've been talking about today. And I hope, this little piece of life that we have talked to you about, that we have given you some tips and tools to help you to triumph in that area. If you like this episode, please subscribe and the episode. It helps us to build our podcast as well as build our Relentless Transitions YouTube channel. And please share. And we look forward to seeing you next time. So, our takeaway for today is the best way, or one of, we think, our top ways to handle transition when you are relocating is to be prepared. Be prepared and do your research. So, this is the end of the episode. Thank you for being with us here today. You can reach out to us at relentlesstransitions@gmail.com. We would love to get comments. If you have some tips on how, you have handled making a transition when you were relocating, we would love to hear about it. And if there are additional episodes that you are interested in us speaking about, we would like to get that information as well. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you right back here for the next episode of the Relentless Transitions Podcast.
Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next time.